Hello, one and all. Welcome to another episode of the MMA Vision Analysis. This one, I'm here to talk about UFC 303's middleweight bout that happened between Michael Venom Page and Ian Garry. But before getting started, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification to get all of this that is new from this channel, your channel, the one and only MMA Vision Analysis. UFC 303 was a fight card that barely, I believe, made it all the way through, and most of the fights were crumbling, and that was the case all the way up, let's say, until about 4 or 5 hours from the beginning of the main card. Obviously, the last news that hit prior to the start of the main card was obviously Brian Ortega's inability to take part in the fight against Diego Lopez, the co-main event, that is. The fight that was supposed to be taking place in the lightweight division, or at least it was at 155. Obviously, Diego Lopez went on to fight someone else and ended up getting the victory. But UFC 303 was one of those interesting fights where, fight cards where everything around it seemed to crumble. But we have such great matchmaking in the UFC to where we were able to get replacement fights. And I think, obviously, the main event was a fantastic fight. Alex Pereira, Yuri Prochazka too. That was a great fight. A great fight for Alex Pereira and the fans, that is. Not so much for Yuri Prochazka. Generally speaking, there was a couple fights that actually made the night. I believe the main event was certainly one of them. But the fight that I'm here to talk about today, Ian Garry versus Michael Venom Page, was a fight that I expected a lot more out of, but it was a clinical performance from Ian Garry nonetheless. A smart decision to have chosen the game plan that Ian Garry chose to defeat Michael Venom Page ultimately, with Ian Garry being the younger fighter, the fresher fighter, and the fighter that has more potential, let's say, for the future, at least in terms of time. Ian Garry is definitely the guy that has time on his side. Just taking into consideration that Michael Venom Page is 37 years old. This fight here, when it was on the ground, it was all Michael Venom Page. As a matter of fact, if this was a 5-rounder, I wonder what would happen. But obviously, this is a mixed martial arts, which means that grappling is perhaps not only a part of fights. Obviously, that's always the case, even though some fights we don't see as much grappling as we see in others, but grappling and jiu-jitsu is an essential part of the game. Sometimes that is the whole entire fight. It becomes a grappling matchup. That's most certainly the case with Dagestani guys. That's how they dominated, at least the cream of the crop of the guys that come out of Russia, specifically Dagestan, the guys that dominated. Not all of guys from Dagestan dominated, obviously. That's not always the case, but there were styles where they implemented wrestling solely, and that dominated. For instance, obviously Khabib Nurmagomedov and the current lightweight champion Islam Makhachev, even though the latter has improved drastically with his striking abilities. I say that to say that Ian Garry has improved dramatically from the last performance. I don't remember seeing Ian Garry being that good with jiu-jitsu. As good as he looked last night. I do understand that he did not finish Michael Venom Page, but he was very close to finishing Michael Venom Page. I believe it was the first round. He had a rear naked choke. But he was not able to lock it in all the way and submit Michael Venom Page. Every time the fight went to the ground, it seems like that Venom Page had no clear indication of what he is to do. He had no idea of how to deal with Ian Garry's threats on the ground. And there was a certain point in the fight, where Michael Venom Page was pretty much carrying Ian Garry for, I want to say, a good minute and a half, 2 minutes on his back, when, even the commentators kind of hinted to that. The simple thing to do at that moment was to try and shake off Ian Garry from your back. But obviously, Michael Venom Page is a sublime striker, but not so good in the grappling department. And I think last night's fight is going to serve a great lesson for everyone who's to face Michael Venom Page in the future. Obviously, they're going to take a page straight out of Ian Garry's performance and implement that against Michael Venom Page every single time heading into the future. So if Michael Venom Page don't improve with his grappling techniques, then I think he is going to be in for a very difficult time, especially taking into consideration that Ian Garry is not the best grappler in that division. There are better grapplers and guys that can actually take you down to the ground and submit you. I would have liked to see more ground and pound from Ian Garry. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Ultimately, the guy got the nod, and at the end of the day, he gets a win against a respectable opponent, an opponent that's extremely hard to difficult to deal with in the form of Michael Venom Page. I'm super excited to see what happens for both guys heading into the future. If you made it this far, I appreciate you for sticking around. Please let me know what you think in the comments and like, subscribe for more.